Welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. And now, let's get sketchy.
Hello there, everyone. Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to Gettin Sketchy Live, the greatest live broadcast in all of YouTube. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting around for this to start back up, and we're ready to go into Season 11. And Season 11 will be all about past artists, actually, because the theme this season is in the style of. So each season we like to have a different theme, and this season we're going to be creating artworks in the style of artists from history. And we've both picked our 5 artists. So this season is going to consist of 10 episodes, and at the end we're going to have a critique like we always do. And I've already picked my 5 artists, and Ashley has already picked his 5 artists. And we're going to let those be a surprise each week. But tonight, my first artist is Andy Warhol, and we'll talk about him in just a second. But first, I'd like to welcome Ashley back into the studio. How you doing over there, Ashley?
Yes, I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for asking. I hope you guys are doing well out there. I've missed you. We're glad to be back. We're really excited about this season. You know, we've had a game show, sort of a game show theme. We did the wheel a couple of seasons, but this one's going to be great. Like Matt said, we picked our artists, and there's some of our favorite artists. Many you'll probably be familiar with, but there may be a few surprises in there.
Absolutely. And I'd like to remind you that this is live on YouTube right now. You might be watching the recorded version sometime in the future, so keep that in mind. But if you are watching it live, of course, there's a chat box. Now, this season, we're going to try something a little bit different with the chat box. We have this feature called a super chat. And if you've participated in other live broadcasts on YouTube, you probably know what a super chat is. But basically, it is an opportunity for you to get your chat or your comment or your question highlighted amongst all of the other comments and questions. And we're going to encourage you this season to use the super chat function. Now, it does cost a little bit of money to do that, but that's also an excellent way for you to support our channel. Doing this, it may seem like it's free, but it does cost money for us actually to publish or produce this video. There's a lot of equipment that goes into it. There is a membership program that we have, of course, but a lot of you just watch the YouTube broadcast. So if you don't want to be a part of the membership program and you want your comments and questions to be seen and visible and guarantee that they're going to be addressed, then we'd encourage you to use the super chat function this season. That'll be great for you, and it'll be great for us as well. And of course, we appreciate any support that you want to give us. Now, with that being said, I am going to remind you that we do have the membership program over at thevirtualinstructor.com, which includes a variety of drawing and painting courses on a variety of subject matter and media. There's weekly live lessons. So each week we broadcast a live lesson from the studio for an hour. So if you like Getting Sketchy and you like the live broadcast, then you don't have to wait for the next season to start after this season is over. Each week we continue on for an hour, and that's a much smaller class than what we have on YouTube. So we can address your questions and comments directly. So consider being a member. There's also weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute and a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers. All of that is included in the membership program, and there's a week-long trial for free too. So there's a link in the description below. So if you want to check out the membership program, you of course can do that and try the program out for free for a week and see if it's right for you. If you want to just dabble a little bit, check out 3 of the course videos and ebooks for free. There's a link in the description for that as well. And that will also put you on our mailing list. So you'll get email reminders when Getting Sketchy starts and when I publish new videos on the website. I send out a newsletter periodically, and usually those newsletters have 8 to 10 new video lessons, sometimes new video series, some of which are part of the membership program, obviously. So it's great to be back. It's great to see all of you guys from all over the world, wherever you're from. We're glad to have you with us. And of course, this is broadcast at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so it's convenient for us. It's convenient for a lot of people here in the United States, but we know that people are watching this from all over the world at different time zones and at different times. So we really appreciate that. I know people are watching this really early in the morning or really late at night. Mm-hmm. And of course, we appreciate your participation in this. And we're excited about this season. I certainly am excited. Ashley, do you have anything else to say before we I
was just, you were talking about all the time zones. We've got folks here from Brazil, Canada, Australia, and of course, North Carolina as well. So again, thanks for tuning in wherever you are.
Yeah. and it's so great to see you guys from all over the world. It's pretty amazing that we're able to do this and get this information and / entertainment out to all of you guys all over the world. If you're new to this kind of thing, Getting Sketchy is where either myself or Ashley, we try to create a drawing or painting inside of 45 minutes. So we are going to have a timer in just a minute. If I can remember what button I need to push to start the timer. That was one thing I forgot to test out, but I do think that I'll be able to find it. So we have 45 minutes to complete the drawing or painting, and the time we try to finish it inside of 45 minutes. But if we go a little bit over, that's okay too. So nothing's going to happen. We're not going to blow up if we don't make it within 45 minutes. And I am nervous about tonight's image that I'm going to make, because I do think it's going to take every second of that 45 minutes. And we might go over it. We'll see. But
I know
first,
you can do it.
We'll see. We'll see if I can do it or not. But first, let's talk a little bit about the artist that I'm going to be featuring tonight. And that artist is Andy Warhol.
All right.
And a lot of people have, probably all of you have heard of Andy Warhol before, but Andy Warhol, of course, is an American artist. He was an American artist. He wasn't just a visual artist, though. He was also a film director, a producer, and a leading figure in the pop art movement. For those of you who don't know what pop art is a reflection of popular culture. So there were several different artists that were considered pop artists. Of course, this was a major movement in art in the 60s, the 1960s. And Andy Warhol was actually a commercial artist before becoming well known as a pop artist. So that kind of that transition from being a commercial artist into a pop artist was a rather easy one, because he was basically kind of doing the same kind of stuff that he did with his commercial art. Not exactly the same. His works, of course, explored the relationship between artistic expression, advertising, and celebrity culture that flourished in the 1960s. And his art also spans a variety of media, including painting, silk screening, photography, film, and sculpture. So we all know Andy Warhol for the soup cans, the Campbell soup cans, one of his earlier works that became famous. But what we're going to be doing with this particular style that I'm going to be focusing on for tonight's artwork is the portraits that he created. Now, these are silk screen paintings, and we can't do silk screening here on Getting Sketchy.
Definitely not inside of 45 minutes.
But we can create an image that replicates a silk screen in a certain way. So I'm going to be trying to create an image that has this same kind of style. Of course, this is one of Andy Warhol's works. This is another one. You can see that this, again, is silk screened. And if you don't know much about the process of silk screening, I can't really explain it here in the short period of time that we have. I would suggest you look it up. It's an interesting process. Silk screening is still used today. Most of it, of course, is a little bit more digitized. So a lot of the screen printing used to be done by hand, but now a lot of that is done in kind of in more of a manufactured process. Here's another piece that, of course, is Debbie Herring, Blondie. And Andy Warhol, a lot of people don't know this, but he was also the producer. I'm not sure if he was the producer. I think he was the producer of the band The Velvet Underground, which was a pretty cool band. I did not know that. Yeah. He also did the cover art of one of the albums there. So anyway, Andy Warhol's a cool dude, of course, and that's why I'm wearing my bright pink tonight. I'm also wearing bright yellow shoes. You can't see that, but I'm wearing bright colors tonight in preparation for being Andy Warhol. So I'm going to... I'm going to try to channel his genius tonight and create an image. And tonight's image I'm actually going to create is a portrait of Andy Warhol in the style of Andy Warhol.
That's funny because, you know, he did famous people.
Right.
And in some ways he's become as famous as the people that he did. So he's a perfect subject for the movement itself. Yeah, absolutely. And when I was in high school, I took one of Andy Warhol's quotes and I put it in a piece of artwork. And that quote was, "In the future, everyone would be famous for 15 minutes." And I didn't really know what that quote meant. But nowadays, if we really think about it, all of us can kind of be famous for 15 minutes with social media and everything that we have today. Post goes viral and then it finally fizzles away.
Exactly.
He saw social media coming down the pipe. It's crazy.
Right. So anyway, I see somebody said, "Matt, please don't do that again." Okay. Anyway, the photo reference that I'm working from, I took one of the photos of Andy Warhol and I put it through a process in Photoshop where I basically reduced it down into 2 values, black and white, and then I produced the photo reference. The photo reference is available for you if you go to the YouTube channel. So if you click on the little image of my face down in the bottom left-hand corner, and then click on the Community tab, you will be able to see that photo reference there. And of course, I think you can download it to your computer and use it alongside of me if you want tonight. I am using a printout. So I have a printout from a computer because we're going to do a transfer process as we create this piece of artwork. So I think that's enough said. Let's go ahead and switch over and
let's do it.
Get to some art making. All right, so over here we have the reference that I'm going to be working from. Now, the paper I'm going to be working on here is Canson Hot Press watercolor paper.
Matt, we've got a super chat from Valerie.
All right.
She says, I love the virtual instructor. Thanks, Matt and Ashley. You're very welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Valerie. We really appreciate it. And of course, every time someone does a super chat, our little faces are going to pop up there and do something silly. Okay. So anyway. Here is our paper, and it is Canson Hot Press watercolor paper. This paper, of course, is smoother, you can see, compared to cold press watercolor paper. And I'm not convinced that this is the best surface for what we're working with tonight. You'll see why when we start applying the Posca markers. So I'm going to be using Posca markers for this. You know, when I first learned of Posca markers, I went a little crazy, and I ordered a bunch of them because I'm super excited about this medium.
They're so unique.
I've only used them a couple times here.
You used them for the octopus, I believe.
I did use them for the octopus, the 4-value drawing from last season. But I love these. They're pretty awesome. But on the watercolor paper, they do kind of start to create some little flaky things. So once they're dry, I'm going to use a drafting brush and wipe it away. That's why I'm not convinced it's the best surface for using the Posca markers, but it's the surface we're going to be using tonight. I'm also going to be using an 8B graphite pencil. We're going to use that for the transfer. So I'm just using some soft graphite. It doesn't have to be an 8B pencil. I don't think I listed this in the materials, but you probably have some soft graphite laying around. And I also am going to use a lead holder with some sharpened graphite in it. And again, that's just going to be part of the transfer process. You don't have to use this. You can use a ballpoint pen or really anything sharp to transfer the image. And speaking of transferring the image, here is my printout here.
Now it's a real Andy Warhol. We've got doubles up there.
Right. Well, you know, a lot of people think that Andy Warhol did just a bunch of replications. And that's not necessarily the case. You know, the images we just looked at were singular portraits. But it does kind of look like that, yeah, doesn't it? Anyway, this is what I'm going to use for the transfer, and you can see it's about the right size to fit within the picture plane here for your cameras. All right, and now let's see if I can pull up the timer. I just want to make sure the timer will come up. Yes, but that is in a bad position.
Dark spot.
So let's see if we can move the timer to another location. We'll put it over here in this corner. But I'm not quite ready to start it yet because that means I've got to start working. So what we're going to do, I'm going to explain what we're going to do here because I'm going to have to go really quick before I start the timer. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the back of the paper with the soft graphite, and I'm going to cover up all of the areas of importance. So I'm going to make sure that I get the hair, the everything that's dark. We can kind of see him through the paper. All of that needs to be covered with the soft graphite. Then I'm going to position this in place over the top of the watercolor paper and tape it down. I've got some masking tape here. Then I'm going to use the sharpened pencil and I'm going to trace over all of the important lines there, and that's going to transfer a silhouette with maybe a few contour lines of Andy Warhol over here on our paper, and then we'll start with the Posca markers. And I do see that we have another super chat.
Kathy Anderson.
Thank you, Kathy. We really appreciate it. Wow, I think that's a super sticker. Oh, it's a super chat. See, I don't even know what this stuff is. But Awesome, Kathy. We really appreciate it. Definitely. All right. So I think we're ready to go here now. I tell you guys, I am super nervous about being able to finish this in 45 minutes. And I think I've talked enough. I think I'm just rattling on now at this point.
Yeah, you need to start making some marks.
Because I'm so nervous to start.
At least you'll get some of that nervous energy out with the graphite transfer, because that's quite a bit of scribbling. And Hemsmith mentions, why not use carbon paper? It's a great question. We'll talk about that as Matt begins.
Well, I'll actually address that first.
Okay.
Carbon paper is a good method to transfer if you have a medium that you are positive you're going to be able to cover up the carbon with, because
carbon's more like ink.
Right. Carbon's going to be a little bit more permanent than graphite.
You can get graphite transfer paper.
You can. That's true.
It does erase, but it is so flimsy and hard to work with. It tears easily. And if you can print an image on thin paper like copy or computer paper, it works just as well. It doesn't cost a thing.
Yes. And this is cheap. This is pretty cheap.
Right, that's cheap paper.
All right, let's go. I'm going to start the timer now, and we're off.
Boom.
So I'm going to quickly cover the back here.
Now, that 8B pencil is super soft. So
it is. It is super soft.
Entirely cover the page to still get a good image. So that's a good choice. The softer the pencil, the better if you're using this graphite transfer method.
And we don't really want to have... we don't really want to have too heavy of marks back here either.
Too strong of lines.
Yeah, so we don't have to go crazy with putting a real heavy
especially
application
since you're going to be switching to a medium that's liquid. You know, you don't want it pulling up a whole lot of extra graphite and mixing in.
Now, the best way to do this process, if you want to make something that really looks like an Andy Warhol silkscreen, is to... instead of using this transfer method, we could use the transfer method to get the lines in place and then paint the basic shapes with the Posca markers. Mm-hmm. But then it would be great to do a gel medium transfer over the top of that. But a gel medium transfer requires you to wait about 8 to 12 hours at least. Before you remove the paper.
Yeah, that would have to be part of the second episode of this 11th season.
Right.
And we don't have time for that.
Okay, so I got a little bit of the ink of the from the printer on there, but that's not a big deal. Okay, now I'm going to position this in place where I want it here. And then I'm just going to quickly tape that down here. It doesn't seem quite straight to me. Let's go a little bit this way.
That looks good.
It's kind of straight.
And you're just taping along one edge so that you can kind of lift it up and peep underneath?
No, I'm going to tape down both ends, because if you only tape down on one edge, the paper is going to slide around. It's still going to slide around. All right. All right, now I'm going to use the pencil, and I'm going to trace over all of the important lines here.
Mostly just hitting hard edges, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going around the outer contours here. And I see we got another super chat, and it says, I love you too, and I love learning from you, Matt. Lots of hugs. Thank you so much.
Yay!
Celtic peasant.
You're not a Celtic peasant or Celtic peasant?
I don't know. Or maybe it's Celtic peasant.
I don't know. I hear it both ways.
Well, I can't pronounce anything. I say words wrong. So forgive me. Still love you.
I say Celtic. I guess it depends.
Okay.
Who you ask. So we're on the same page there.
All right. So I am outlining the areas where we have some of the dark meeting some of the light too. And guys, I'm going at a blazing fast speed. I would not encourage this type of speed. I would encourage you to go slower and more deliberate. But of course,
it's going to add energy, man.
We don't really need energy here. The best thing for this drawing slash painting.
He's had a blowout.
Is
the lead broke.
Is precision. Well, this is dramatic, isn't it?
That's because your lead was 1.5 inches long.
Well, you want precision here. You don't really want it to be sketchy and loose. And so keep that in mind. Because Andy Warhol was pretty tight, I feel like. All right, we're going to go ahead and kind of give an idea where the lips are. Just real loosely. A lot of this stuff we're going to be drawing in with the Posca markers, of course.
Now, Andy Warhol, he famously had a studio that he called The Factory, I believe.
Yes.
And he employed a lot of other artists to help create his work. He called it a factory because they produced so much, almost like it was an assembly line or a production line. So this would be more of a Warhol is if you stood back and just told me what to do and I did it for you.
Yes. And we all know, well, maybe you all don't know who Jeff Koons is, but Jeff Koons is a modern artist that works in the same fashion. He implores artists to work for him to create paintings and sculptures and all kinds of art. And I don't know how you feel about that, but
it's always a discussion I like to have in my classroom with my own students. You know, they're inclined to say, when they first learn that not all artists actually touch their artwork, that it's not their art. But that's kind of like saying a building isn't an architect's building. Just because the architect doesn't pour the concrete doesn't necessarily mean they're not vested in the project, and especially in the concept or the idea.
That is a very good argument.
I can argue the other side also.
Yeah, of course.
So I guess that's it's your own personal take. But some of these artists are in such high demand when their career really takes off that it would be hard to keep up without at least having assistants, if not others actually producing some of the finished work. You know, Rembrandt did that. Early in Rembrandt's life, he employed scores of artists to paint large sections of his artwork. He would still work on them, but maybe on the faces and the hands, but backgrounds and clothes could be painted by some of his assistants.
All right, there we have Andy Warhol on our paper waiting for us.
It doesn't look like you left out anything important. Good job.
Now I'm just going to sharpen up the borders here because I am going to have some sharp edges here. Hopefully that's the plan. Let's go ahead and bring up this side here. Again, I'm not really measuring or anything, so I'm hoping this is going to turn out to be rectangular. Kind of looks like it, doesn't it? I'll slide that down a little bit. Right along the top here. It seems to look pretty straight. All right. I think we're ready.
Good. Boxed
All right.
them out.
So what I'm going to do here is I've got several colors chosen already. I'm going to use yellow for the hair, green for the background, a bright pink for the face, blue for the shirt, red for the glasses and the tie, and then I'm going to use some black as the finishing touch here. So
primary colors plus green.
Which
I like to call the other primary. You know, green is so prevalent in our own world that even though it's a secondary color, it seems super important. So I like to. It's like the fifth beetle, and the green is the fourth primary.
So what I want to do is I want to work quickly here, obviously because of the time, but I want to make sure I have most of my time spent on the black applications. So I'm just thinking about shapes of color right now, and I'm filling in those shapes of color, just like I said, with these Posca markers. Now, I've noticed that these markers seem to work best when you pull in one direction instead of going back and forth, which is what your natural instinct is probably when you are using a marker.
Is the difference that it seems to run out of paint sort of and has to recharge a little bit?
Yes, and it also agitates the paper.
I can see a little bit of texture developing from the marks on the paper.
And we'll have to let those dry, those areas dry, and then wipe them away with the drafting brush. That's what I was referring to with this not being maybe the perfect surface to work on.
This is watercolor paper. So
this is hot press watercolor
paper. Probably made of cotton.
Yes.
Maybe that's just too fibrous.
But
Not too fibrous, but maybe more than.
well, these Posca markers are, I'm imagining, water-based, so you would think that wouldn't affect things too much.
I guess that tip is kind of abrasive.
Yeah, that might be it. All right.
So your plan is to apply all the colors and then use black last.
Yes, the black will go over the top of
Do you
all the
have to
colored
use
areas.
Posca markers like that, or will colors go over, a lighter color go over a darker color?
Yeah, a lighter color will go over a darker color to a certain degree, depending on what darker color it is and what lighter color it is. For example, if you try to apply a light yellow over the top of black,
Green. Kind of looks green.
it's not going to show up too well.
Yeah.
You can see some of these marks in here. We'll just deal with that right now.
Just add a little
Kinda go the
variety
other
to your
way.
strokes in there.
All right, we might come back for some of those green sections if we have time, which we probably won't. Let's go ahead and go to the yellow next. And this is going to be the hair section.
Is it picking up a little bit of graphite in there?
I think it is, yeah. That shouldn't be too big of a deal. I'm picking up some green on the palm of my hand, though. That might be a big deal. Because a lot of these graphite lines are going to be covered up with the black.
Yeah.
So we'll go right over the top of a lot of this yellow with the black, actually.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of darkness in the hair.
So again, if you wanted to make this really look like an Andy Warhol silk screen, what you would do here is color in all these areas like we're doing here. You use the transfer like this and lay it over the top with the gel medium applied, of course. And then, well, the gel medium transfers a whole process. And you have to let it dry, and then you have to squirt it with
like
water.
a regular print, it would come out in the reverse, right?
It would come out in reverse unless you would need to print it in reverse.
Right.
And you would need to have it printed at probably a local print shop because you want to have, let's see, is it inkjet? Is it inkjet?
I think so. I think we used to use the inkjet printers for that.
Yeah, it has to be toner, not the toner that you have in your printer, not the ink that you have in your printer.
Right. It's got to be that powdery stuff.
Right. And you can make a copy, and usually a copy will be made with toner. If you want to learn more about that process, I have a lesson on it at thevirtualinstructor.com. It's also called acrylic gel transfers
Yeah, I haven't
or
done
photo
one of those
transfers.
in forever.
Yeah, it's a really cool process. All right, so you can see some of that flaking happening here. All right, let's go ahead and go to the pink next. And this is going to be on the face. So I am avoiding the glasses and everything, and the hair, of course.
What color are you going to use for the glasses?
Red.
Okay.
The glasses will be red, the tie will be red, but the shirt will be a light blue. That is the plan. Anyway.
Well, it seems like you're making good time, but I know a lot of the
It does seem like it, doesn't it?
It comes in with the black.
It seems like it. But look at all that black on there.
Right.
There's a lot to do in there. And you know, I am not always the best at gauging the amount of time it's going to take me to do a drawing or painting.
Right. 11 seasons is not enough
For
to get used
those,
to what 45 minutes of art's what can happen in 45 minutes.
well, That's kind of an unfair statement because we use so many different mediums and
true.
so many different processes.
No, I mean that in all sincerity. Sometimes I bite off more often than not, I bite off more than I can chew in 45 minutes.
This is a completely different process than we've ever done here.
That's true.
Now the inside of these eyes have got to be colored in, so it's actually going to be an advantage to see some of the graphite through the pink there. And I'm going back and forth this marker anyway, even though I told you that you should not do that.
Now, did you base your color choices off of a specific portrait that Andy Warhol did?
No, I just spent some time and looked at several of them.
Just try to sort of absorb the concept a little bit and make your own color choices.
Yeah, mainly the Mao Zedong images.
Okay.
And, he did a whole series with different color schemes, different color choices. And it just seemed like, with the exception of a few, the colors were kind of close to what they might be, just exaggerated. Like the Debbie Herring image that I showed you, the skin tone's kind of close to being a skin tone, but not quite.
She had that wonderful blue eyeshadow on, which could have been
the blue eyeshadow.
Could have been accurate. I don't know.
Really strong blue eyeshadow, and also the purple hair, the purple background. So you can see that's one of these things that the Posca markers do. They just kind of like become a little chalky. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have to push down and encourage some more.
A little bit like traditional paint pens, you can kind of get ahead of them a little bit and have to let that filament recharge by just pushing down on it.
Yeah, especially when you're up against the clock here, trying to go quick. Definitely get ahead of them, like you said. And I've noticed the lighter colors also do it a little bit more than some of the darker colors. The black doesn't do it quite as much. For example. All right, so I know all of this is going to be pretty dark down here.
Do you think
black.
that Bristol board or Bristol paper or mixed media paper would be a good choice for these markers?
Probably mixed media paper, but over the Bristol paper, because I think the Bristol paper, I don't see why it would be any different.
It might look too streaky, actually.
I don't see how I would think the Bristol paper would perform the exact same way as this watercolor paper. I don't think it's the paper that's tearing up. It's the marker. Mm-hmm. And with mixed media paper, that paper is usually a little bit more textured, and I don't know if that's great for these markers. I think these markers probably...
That's true. It could damage the tip.
Right. Would perform a little bit better on smoother surfaces. I actually am curious how they would perform on clayboard. I really think that clayboard, in my mind, I haven't tried this, but I would think that clayboard might be one of the best surfaces for this. Is
clayboard a little bit porous?
Maybe so.
We've got a super chat from Mary Elizabeth. Fantastic. Thank you, Mary Elizabeth. Yay!
We really appreciate that, Mary Elizabeth. Now, I'll remind you that we are trying to do the super chat here in place of capitalization for comments. So if you want your comments to be...
attach those with questions if you have one.
Yes, questions and comments, of course. But we love just getting the super chats,
thank you for the support.
Yep, I saw that somebody said here, you're right, Matt, all papers act the same way with Poscas. Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, I've mostly just used them with drawing sketchbooks, drawing books, and similar. Once you start working over top of Posca with other Posca, a little bit less so, because the paper's kind of glued together by those first layers.
Okay, I'm just going to bring a little bit of pink over here in the neck. I know most of this is going to be covered up with the black marker applications, but
Might have a little color
bit
peeping
over there.
through in those shadows.
All right, next let's do the blue shirt. And I did miss a line here. I thought I remembered going over this one, but maybe not.
That's why sometimes I just tape the top so that I can peep underneath and see what I've missed.
All right, let's do the blue. This will be the shirt color.
Oh, it's a beautiful blue. It's very cerulean.
It is very cerulean.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like that would be a compliment. That man sure is cerulean, isn't he? It was mighty cerulean.
I'm going to start using it as a compliment.
It's a compliment. Well, that was mighty cerulean of you. All right, and on this side too here. So this obviously, since we have these guidelines in place, it makes it a whole lot easier. It of course saves time. But we still have a challenge. There's still quite a challenge ahead of us here. All right. Red tie and red glasses. So I'm going to do the glasses first. And I'm trying to keep the palm of my hand out of the way here of where I've already applied the Posca so that it dries, has plenty of time to dry.
You don't have the luxury of waiting for it to dry.
Right. I also don't have the luxury of tilting my paper either. So I am trying to very carefully work my way around the surface. And I felt it, the coldness of wet paint on the palm of my hand here. Look at that. I do have some on my hand here. It's fine to get it on my hand. I just got to make sure I don't get it on the artwork. And I am glad that I can see some of the graphite lines through those pink applications. That is fortuitous.
Matt, you said you believe these are water-based markers. Someone else may have mentioned they thought they were alcohol-based. Would these markers be reactivated with water, or do they reactivate each other when they bump up against one another?
They definitely don't reactivate each other when they bump up against each other.
They're permanent when they're dry.
They're permanent when they dry, I believe. But they do, I've said this before, they remind me of tempera paint. But, whether they're alcohol-based or water-based, acrylic paints are water-based. But they're very permanent, and they don't reactivate once they're dry. So there's something in these markers that is the binder is very important. And it
keeps it from reactivating like tempera paint would.
The binder, to me, is a mystery. If anybody knows what the binder is in Posca Markers, please share it. But I don't know what it is. All right. I don't know if I've waited long enough, but we're going to get rid of some of these little flaky things here. And as I'm getting rid of the flaky things, it doesn't feel like paper. It feels like, it could be paper, but it doesn't. This is pretty high quality watercolor paper. And it just doesn't feel like it's paper. It feels like it's the paint.
Celtic Peasant says that it's acrylic paint.
This is acrylic paint?
The Posca pens are acrylic paint.
Well, I've used acrylic paint pens before, and these feel different. So, but it could be.
It could be acrylic paint with the addition of something else that give them that kind of a matte look. They look
really
great on the feed. They don't shine or anything like
right.
acrylic paint.
They really do behave like tempera paint.
Something else in there.
But we know it's not tempera paint because tempera paint is reactivated with water. So could be acrylics. They don't tell us here. We know it's made by Mitsubishi, which is interesting.
What?
Yeah. Mitsubishi.
You're kidding. How about that?
Yeah, right there.
Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi.
Be careful.
Started out, I read, in the 1800s as a fishing company, like little fishing boats.
Huh.
And they just keep reinventing themselves. So let that be a lesson to businesses that don't change with the times. You can start out at a fishing company, you can make TVs, a few cars, and eventually art supplies.
All right, let's start adding some black here. So obviously I'm starting with the larger black marker, but it is also wanting to be a little bit difficult. Let's see if we can
it looks like the
some more.
consensus is that they are in fact water-based, so that would be, and acrylic paint would still fall into that category. And that's why they don't dry so fast, I guess, and why you got to be careful.
But they don't dry
slower.
shiny, and they also don't, they're not, I think they're water resistant, but I don't know how waterproof they are. Does that make sense? They just don't look, on the surface, they don't look like acrylics.
Right.
They look like tempera paint.
Susan says it's like acrylic gouache. And it kind of rides the line between those types of paints, doesn't it?
I think that's a good, it does, that's a very good description. It feels like it's acrylic gouache, if there is a such thing.
It seems like an oxymoron, but that's the impression that you get when you use them.
Yeah, that's a very good description. It's a good way to describe them. So if you've ever, they dry kind of like gouache, although I think gouache is a little bit more opaque. But they're not perfect. They're definitely not a perfect solution. But they are a cool new art medium here to work with, that's for sure. And they're great for doing this kind of stuff that we're doing here. The kind of
a super chat from Mary Elizabeth again, and she's got a question. What kind of pencil sharpener do you like?
Okay, well first let's give it the proper cheer.
Little heads, little ventriloquist heads.
What kind of pencil sharpener do I like? Well, my favorite pencil sharpener is always going to be just a simple handheld pencil sharpener. I've got several over here in my container of pencil shavings. One day I'm going to give somebody that
you
for
can make
Christmas.
a piece of art out of all those pencil shavings. Make a sculpture out of it.
It's getting really heavy, actually.
Just mix some wheat paste into there. That would be cool. Well, I like to use an X-Acto knife or hobby knife, but usually they're made by X-Acto. That's what I prefer because those handheld pencil sharpeners, I lose them or they get dull. And the hobby knife blades, X-Acto knife blades are so cheap, you get tons of them in a pack for very little money. And I can always seem to find X-Acto knives. I have a hard time keeping up with pencil sharpeners or the plastic cracks. So that having been said, the little silver metal handheld pencil sharpeners, I do like those because they're all metal. But I like the slowness of sharpening my pencil with a X-Acto knife.
And that's also a very good sharpening device. If you want having a really long exposed lead, then that's definitely the way to go. That's how I sharpen my pastel pencils. And there's a video on YouTube that I made called How to Sharpen Any Pencil. And in that video, I cover several different pencil sharpeners and also the process of cutting like Ashley just described. So if you want to learn more about that, Mary Elizabeth, you can go check that out.
Earlier in the process, you used a very special pencil sharpener off screen because you were using a lead holder.
Right. Yeah, this. I feel like I've got enough time now to slow down a little bit.
You got 17 minutes for the black.
Again, I have no idea how long stuff is going to go. If you watch the live lessons, I'll start a lesson. I'll say this is going to take 3 lessons. It ends up taking 10.
They all take 10.
They don't. Anyway, this is not made by Staedtler, but it is made by a company, and I think it is made to look like Staedtler. There's 2 openings here. One is if you want a longer lead, and one if you want a shorter lead. So if I want a longer lead, I'll stick it in there, and then release it, and that exposes a little bit of the lead here. Then I can stick it in here and just rotate it around, and voila, I have
Let's
a nice
just have like
sharp tip.
abrasive walls on the inside that it rubs against, like a sandpaper.
Yeah, probably like sandpaperish walls, maybe metal.
A very unique pencil sharpener for lead holders.
Yeah, that's specifically for this type of lead holder. So, which is also a great device to draw with.
Definitely. They're heavier than a pencil by just a little bit, so they feel good in the hand.
We get asked a lot what our favorite this or that is, but I don't know if you've noticed, we use lots of different things. And we do have favorites, but sometimes my favorite depends on what mood I'm in or what type of drawing I'm creating. Mm-hmm. Is that true for you too?
Our favorite art supplies are art supplies. We just love them all.
Well, that's not entirely true, because there are some art supplies that I don't like. Yeah, that's true.
We usually don't talk about the ones we hate.
Right, that's true.
That's a little policy.
Yeah, I don't like to put things down because there's somebody out there that loves it.
Probably.
And if they're having success with it, then I don't want them to change that.
Who are we to make them feel like they should stop?
Exactly.
And they found a way, and we just haven't yet.
Well, it's just like, I think I learned that. Well, there's an old saying, if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say anything at all, Mm-hmm. But I think I've really learned that you should not really put down other people's processes or other people's materials that they like to use, because people find success in a variety of different ways. And that's ultimately what we want you to have, is success in your art making. But there are a lot of people out there, for some reason, that really, almost to a level of violence, hate Prismacolor pencils, colored pencils. And I don't really get it.
I don't know if it's because they've been so successful, so many people like them, that
do you think that's something
like
to it?
To knock the king off the throne,
right? You got to dislike them because other people like them.
If you prefer something that's harder, that's totally understandable. That is a personal preference, but they do a great job in being what they're meant to be, which is a very soft, mixable colored pencil.
All right, so you'll notice that around some of these dark shapes, we have kind of a transition.
Yeah.
Where we've got kind of like some dots
kind of
and
a dithery gradation effect.
Yeah, we're going to do most of the large shapes here with this larger marker, and then we're going to go back with a smaller black marker and take care of all those little transition areas. So I'm just concentrating on larger shapes of dark.
The more solid areas right now.
Right.
Working from general to detailed or specific eventually.
And I originally, when I decided I was going to do Andy Warhol as one of the artists, I originally thought, well, I'll do a block print. And that would have been really funny.
I remember I was talking about that a couple of weeks ago.
Because there's no way I could have done a block print in 45 minutes. But
you would have had cuts all over your hand.
I had in my mind,
it would be only one color, print. Red.
But you could, you could make this look like a block print by keeping some of these lines solid and crisp and not doing the little dithery do there that we're going to do. But we're trying to make this look like a screen print more so than a block print. But I did want to kind of do a printmaking process, since Andy Warhol was a printmaker.
That's right. He was a printmaker.
And I know not just a printmaker.
Mm-mm. I've got a printmaker coming up in my selection of artists this season. And I mentioned the artist to my wife, and she had never heard of him. And I said, well, you know what? Andy Warhol would have known who he was, because he was a printmaker. But, a lot of people think Andy Warhol is just a painter. because of the bright colors, and there was definitely paint in his artwork. A lot of his artwork was really better described maybe even as mixed media.
We'll go ahead and put some of these plaid lines on here. And I'm just going to make these solid lines.
That gives a little bit of weight also, just compositionally speaking, to balance out those attractive glasses. Pattern and texture is a great way to add variety, but also a little bit of extra weight for balance.
Well, the plaid pattern does have like some broken lines in there. I'm not going to try to create those broken lines. I'm going to make the dark side of the tie, because one thing that's for sure is we have strong light in here, heavy contrast.
Oh, yes.
All right, let's see where we got some other opportunities to make some big marks. We'll save all the marks in the glasses and the eyes and the face for the smaller marker. Now, another thing that I have a bad habit of doing is getting overconfident with how much time I have.
Oh my goodness.
Oh
we
my
talked too long
gosh.
about the sharpeners.
Yeah, I was just like, I got plenty of time. Let's share everything I know about pencil sharpeners. So now I'm back under the gun here.
I see Brent Does Art is making some guesses on who might be in the stable of artists that we're going to be drawing from. That would be fun. You guys can write down who you think we might choose, and then like on a bingo card.
But we're not going to tell you.
No, we're not going to tell you. And then each week you can mark them out and see who gets the highest number of guesses right.
You have to tune in to find out who we are doing. Next week, of course, Ashley will be creating the art.
That's
so
right.
We'll tell you that much.
I'm excited. I'm excited about my choices, nervous about a couple of them, but excited nonetheless.
Yeah, it should be fun. I would say what's ironic or interesting is I think most of my artists create colorful artworks. There's only one lesson I think that I'm going to do that's not colorful.
And mine's the very opposite.
And yours is the opposite, which is interesting. I would think that you would pick the colorful artist.
Well, look at how I'm dressed tonight, and look at how you're dressed.
That's true.
I'm wearing gray
You
and
guys
brown.
can't see Ashley, but it is August in North Carolina. And if you've ever been to North Carolina in August, then you know how it feels. And it is not cold. But Ashley is wearing... Is that a long sleeve shirt underneath that?
No.
Okay.
It's like a cotton polo shirt.
Yeah.
And then I've got a brown hoodie over top of it.
He's wearing a hoodie and pants.
And pants, long pants.
I am wearing a short sleeve shirt and shorts, and I'm on the verge of sweating.
You know, I think I've mentioned this before. I like that air conditioning takes the humidity out of the air, but I'm not crazy that it blows cold air on me. I just don't really care for air conditioning. And it's drafty. It's drafty. So if there was, I guess what I needed instead of an air conditioning system in my house is just humidifiers everywhere.
I don't care for air conditioning. Did you just say that?
It's that it blows cold air on me, you know? So, yeah, it's a problem for me.
Oh, I care.
I'm getting
very
some
deep.
support from Buddy out there. She says she understands.
Oh, has Buddy been to North Carolina in August?
Or I think just understands about maybe the air conditioning.
I'm pretty sure Buddy lives in Germany.
That's right.
Yeah.
Where most buildings don't have air conditioning, by the way.
They also don't have the same weather that we have.
And that's also true. They're latitudinally quite a bit higher on the globe.
Oh, well, I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know.
I wish I could wear all those clothes right now because The longer clothes, the warmer clothes are the cooler clothes, always, it seems like to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I prefer...
Much better dressed.
I wouldn't take any fashion cues from me, but I think that cold weather clothes can be more fashionable than warm weather clothes.
I agree.
On other people, not myself.
And I think... on you too. I think that's why some people look forward to fall. Is simply they get to wear some of their clothes that they haven't got to wear in a while. All right, 5 minutes. We're obviously not going to finish this in time. So
it's looking really good now. Those individual marks in the hair and in the shirt, it's developing some character.
All right, well, thanks. I'm going to go ahead and do some of these smaller lines in the hair. And then we'll focus on the face. I'm trying to keep I don't want to do the face and stuff and then go back to the hair because the palm of my hand will be in the way. So I'm going to do some of these and just add a little bit more of an indication of some, maybe a little bit of texture up here.
Mm-hmm. You've still got 5+ minutes. I think you're doing all right.
Yeah, but that's not enough time. We got, I think 6 minutes, 7 minutes. We might be able to get it done.
Matt,
yeah, one
of us should have a dial that's attached to the timer, and we can really slow the seconds down by like 1/4 of a second and just adjust our perception of seconds by a little bit. We'd always be on time.
That
it would be cheating.
Sounds pretty complicated.
It would be cheating, but it would.
I'm sitting here thinking of how we could do that.
Rig that up. Yeah.
You're the idea man here. I've got an idea.
Let's slow down time.
There are so many idea people out there, trust me, that send me all of their ideas all the time. Mm-hmm. You know what you ought to do? You ought to do this. All right, just a few more. I'm not going to spend too much time on the hair. Obviously, Andy Warhol didn't spend much time on his hair. I do want this to look kind of graphic-y. All right. That looks like Andy Warhol hair. All right, let's go into the face. I'm going to start with the eye here. And there is a little bit of a highlight there.
Ryan Nebula said we should adjust or pause the timer when we go on a tangent about things like sharpeners. We could do that. We could have a little when you pick your hands up, we pause. So.
Right. Again, I don't know how to pause the timer. I don't know how to pause the timer. I know how to stop the timer and restart it.
It starts over at 45
right.
minutes. Yeah.
And that is about all I know how to do. So at this point, I've got a few lines here in place, but I am still having to draw. So I am still having to look at the reference and get some ideas of where the lines need to be.
While we're coming up with great ideas on how to manage the timer, Jan says if you just paint the upper right corner black with your marker, we won't be able to see the time. So
yeah, if I just drew over the top of the marker, right? Yeah. That's the best idea for how to handle this.
Shelly's offered a super chat. She says, welcome back. Love the theme for this season. I'm glad you're excited about it. We are too.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. Really appreciate it.
I think the themes keep the seasons fresh.
Yeah. And they keep us challenged too. Mm-hmm. Just the thought of, okay, this week I'm going to draw a bird with graphite. While that would be informative and probably fun, that would be pretty easy actually to pull off, especially after all the stuff we've done here with these seasons
these are meant
and these
to
challenges.
Be fun, but also semi-educational. And this isn't like a deep dive into art history or anything like that, but it does give us a chance to touch on maybe some different points about media and process than we would think to necessarily use without the inspiration of some of, in this case, the artists that we've chosen.
Yeah, because this is definitely
it's hard to work in someone else's style.
Right. We are working
It really
out.
is.
That's what I was going to say. We are working outside of the way that we maybe normally work, although we do such a broad variety of things that what is it? What is outside of our? You know,
How would we work if we only did our own? I guess like single media process all the time. I don't know. That's just not who we are. I guess.
Yeah.
Like to bounce around. It keeps it fresh.
So, well, now we're starting to see a face here develop, at least. We've had that pink nothingness there for a while. Got another highlight over here. And 30 seconds. So obviously, I'm not going to make it inside of the 45 minutes. But
That's
again,
okay.
that is a suggestion.
Oh, I've got a question from Funky Grooves 51, and it comes with a super chat. Thank you. Ashley, any struggles with students now that AI is getting even more available and used by many? That's a great question. I actually was talking with one of my colleagues about that today. And of course, we were talking in the context of all of the different courses offered in a school, like English and science, where you might write papers, but also in the context of art making. And we're about to find out. The school year is only just about to begin. I have a little speech prepared about AI and when it's what it might be good for and what it might not be so good for in terms of art making. Of course, one of the things we talked about or will talk about is there is a similarity between for some AI art that I've seen, from one person to the next. You're going to see, depending on their choices in terms of their prompts that they put in, two different people could end up with artwork that is pretty similar, similarly generated. So that's a factor. And another is that I'm not sure. I mean, I have seen some really cool AI art, particularly AI animation. I don't know how difficult and challenging it might be to write the prompts to create AI animation. I mean, maybe it may actually be harder, all that typing and writing that you would have to do. But in any case, there's a joy, a pleasure that comes from creating art on our own, and also we learn about the elements and principles of art and composition that might help us to recognize the good art from bad art. And I think AI art can be classified as good and bad also in terms of composition. If we don't learn those things, and sometimes we learn by doing, it may be more challenging to recognize the good art from the bad.
And
those are some of my thoughts.
For the super chat, we got to give him a cheer.
Yay!
Yeah!
That's right. That animation you made, the super chat, it's very Monty Python-esque.
That was the intent.
Love that.
Yeah,
Mouth's looking really good, Matt.
Well, thanks.
And that nose developed fast.
Well,
because it had to.
It was there.
But it looks good.
It was there. I'm just putting like some short little stabby marks for some of the dots. There is a little bit of a loss of control here with the Posca marker.
Going back to the AI, a lot of the concern in schools right now is whether students are using it when they're not supposed to, and it's possible that they're allowed to at some times. Could be part of a process that a teacher might write for an assignment of some sort. But the concern really is using it as a way of cheating when they've been specifically told not to use AI. And in the art world, I guess, we watch our students, we see them make the bulk of their work. So it would be a little harder to use it for cheating. Now, you could use AI. I could see students using AI to plan or sort of brainstorm a little bit, and then taking what they've observed into a handmade project. But just remember, There are machines that make kitchenware, right? And there's also still ceramic artists. And I don't know about you, but I love dishes. I love cups that are made by ceramic artists, even though they can just be stamped and pressed out by machines. So I don't think there's a danger in folks losing their appreciation for the art that we make with our hands. And it may, in fact, it may go the other way. There may be it's possible that folks will develop a greater appreciation as time goes on for art that's made the old-fashioned way.
I think that was well said, well explained, and makes total sense.
Time will tell. It's looking good, Matt.
Thank you.
Really like the way you did the mouth. I think it really captured, quality of Andy Warhol.
Okay, I know the time's up, but if we remember some of the images we saw, there were some random weird lines in the background.
Oh, yeah.
So we got to add that.
Yes.
And maybe a little squiggle up here. And let's do one in color down here. There we go.
All right. I like that. Looks great.
Done. So we went a little bit over, but of course, it takes time to create a portrait of Andy Warhol.
If you subtract the time we talked about the sharpeners out, you were probably right on time.
All right. I think we're ready to wrap this up. We'll go ahead and switch out over here if we don't have anything else.
It's a great start to the season, I think.
I think so too. I think so for sure. And I guess we can reveal. What do you want to reveal here doing next week, or do you want to make people tune in?
I guess we could. I mean, we couldn't do that for the first episode because it was the first one, but I guess we could do that. Especially for folks that might want to draw along with us, it might be good to say what we're going to do.
Right. Of course, I will tell people a few days prior anyway. Yeah. So if you want to let the cat out of the bag,
okay. Yeah, we'll do that.
You can do that if you want.
So Brett does art. We are going to do Van Gogh next week. Vincent Van Gogh will be showcased here on Gettin Sketchy, but we're going to focus on the way he drew, his drawing style. So we're going to be working with charcoal, mostly vine charcoal. I'll probably bring some compressed charcoal, but we'll be using vine charcoal, working on white or an almost white paper. So that's it, Vincent Van Gogh.
All right, so that'll be interesting because when you said you were doing Van Gogh, what medium came to my mind was oil pastels.
Yeah.
But you're going to be using charcoal, so that's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see that. So we'll continue next week, of course, with episode 2 of season 11. And thanks for joining us tonight. And I'll remind all of you that we're going to be live again in 22 minutes from now as I continue on with a pastel landscape. Part of the membership program there of the live lessons. They're live lessons, which are part of the membership program. So I'll see some of you guys over there, of course, and I'm looking forward to that 22 minutes from now. For the rest of you guys, I hope you have a wonderful week. Ashley, have anything else to say to folks?
I don't believe so. I'm lost for words.
All right. Have a great week, everybody. Good night. And one more thing. Didn't say this before, but guys, if you like this kind of stuff, make sure that you give this video a like. And if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, I would encourage you to do that. And also click the notification bell so you're notified when new videos are posted and when we go live. If you are subscribed but you haven't clicked the notification bell, I don't think YouTube notifies you when we go live. So make sure that you are notified. Make sure you're a subscriber and that you're notified so you're ready to go next week, next Wednesday, when Ashley creates the drawing. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and sign out. Good night, everybody. See you later.